Hello, my name is Anna Gonzalez, and I am here to share my testimony of how Jesus Christ has saved my life. As a disclaimer, I just want to say it's very interesting how I've tried to film this video probably a couple dozen times already in the last 2 years, and nothing has worked. For some reason, every time I try to film this video, either my phone would stop working out of nowhere, I didn't have enough storage, the laptop would glitch. Like, it's just insane. And I tried to kind of do things my way, and I had full, makeup on, and I try to do the whole thing to look aesthetically pleasing, but it never worked. For 2 years I've tried, and every single time something happened. And so here I am today, messy haired, my child is sleeping, and I said I have a minute, and I feel it in my heart. And it was a tough night. As you can tell, I've been crying. And all I feel in my heart is just to complete a promise. And my apologies, I know it's very noisy. It's never gonna be the right time to do this, but I just feel it in my heart to really accomplish that promise that I had made. So back in 2020, after nearly a decade of being very heavily involved in the spiritualism, New Age in particular, I was deep into a lot of esoteric things. I was called myself a tarot psychologist, deep into astrology, emotional healing, Reiki, past life regressions, family constellations, you name it, and I was doing it. And I had clients from everywhere. I was working out of Canada with clients in South America and the States, and I started working on mediumship too. I was working with some teachers. Anyways, it was a very deep work that I was very heavily into, and I identified myself as that, as a healer and a reader and a medium and all these things. And as I started getting deeper into it, I started realizing that duality in it, that darker aspect of it. So many things were being shown to me, and now looking back on it, I know that it was just God preparing me. But in particular, I'm gonna tell you about 2 experiences that happened in my life that I can attest were God truly saving me from those paths. So the first experience happened in December of 2020. I was going to do some work on a client along with my then teacher, and we were going to do a past life regression for her. With that, we were going to do some emotional healing and some other stuff. And so I remember getting into work that day, and I felt very sick. I wanted to throw up. I was just really, really, really out of it. And I called the person I was doing the work with, and I said, listen, I really don't feel good. I don't want to do this. For some reason, something tells me it's not good. And she just reassured me that everything would be fine, that we have ways to protect ourselves, and that we should just continue and do the work on this client. So I decided to go along with it, and I did. So I showed up, and what happened next was very much an eye-opener. As I had mentioned before, God had already kind of shown me that things seemed a little bit off. I started realizing people were acting strange within the community, and I'll explain why that is later on in the video. But essentially, as we started doing this regression, the person said that, I don't want to go too much into detail because I don't want to scare you, but essentially we could visibly see that there was a possession that was taking place, and the things that happened during this session were very much out of a movie. You know, lights flickering and just very uncomfortable supernatural things were happening. And so at that moment, this is where my eye-opening experience happened, and the veil kind of just fell from my eyes. There was a moment in particular where things seemed very scary, and I was looking at my teacher because she said we had ways of protecting ourselves. However, she had been clear that she didn't do possession. She didn't work with that. So I looked at her and I saw fear in her eyes. And in that moment, I was kind of like, okay, what do we do, right? And she started looking at me to take the lead. And so what I did next was I began to pray the Lord's Prayer. I had been a Christian my whole life prior to getting into New Age, and you know, I didn't think that I was doing anything different outside of, you know, the belief. I just kind of felt like everything was a puzzle piece, and it all kind of just came together, and so I thought I was just above religion. But it was something in me very innate that just wanted to pray that. And so she began to pray it with me. And as we were praying the Lord's Prayer, we just felt that the energy in the room just changed completely, and this thing just left. And so what happened next was we decided to tell the client to, you know, just a couple things, just stay away from, you know, a couple things to stay away from. We just basically gave her some advice, and I ended up just packing up my things and saying, yeah, it's time for me to go. On my ride home, I remember crying and feeling very angry and overwhelmed, and I thought to myself, I don't know if this is what God wants for me, to put me in those sort of positions. And so I thought about it quite a bit, and I called the person, my teacher. Okay, I'm back. So my phone definitely died earlier when I was mid-chat. But yeah, so back to my story. I ended up calling my teacher and letting her know that I did not want to work anymore, that I was going to take a hiatus, I guess. Yeah. All the time I didn't know if I was going to completely be done with it, but I feel on a soul level I probably knew I was going to be. And I just explained to her, and I warned her, and I said, look, it seems to me like things like this, very weird things keep happening in this kind of community, and I'm noticing it more and more. People acting very weird, people acting very out of character, people are starting to look different. Like people that looked a certain way when I first met them, once they started deep into the community, they started to look different. And not for anything, but like even a lot of women started to look more masculine, and a lot of men started to look more feminine. I don't know, it was just weird. Anyway, that's just my own personal I guess my own personal just observation. So that's where we left off. She said she was also going to take a break, and that was it. That night I went to bed, I prayed, And I said, you know, I apologize. God, like, I don't know, just something felt weird. Anyways, that same night, I can tell you that whatever remnants of this thing that I had seen, essentially came back with me. Again, the point of this video is to give my testimony and to glorify God's name. I don't want to get too into the details. Maybe if you have any questions, you can, you know, write me on here and I can message. But essentially I realized that I had brought some of these things with me, or this thing with me, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I heard some things, I saw some things, and the very next day I was woken up with a very high fever. I was very much out of it. I must have been having a nightmare or something. My boyfriend, he woke me up, who's now my husband. He woke me up and I was just breaking out in cold sweats. I was very sick, and then the sickness progressively started to get worse, and it went on for about 11 days. I remember that because I had a conversation with my mom, and I was missing work. This was probably the biggest, like one of the worst sicknesses I've ever experienced, and certainly looking back on it, probably a spiritual, you know, attack that I was dealing with. And I could barely even put water down. Like, I literally could not eat at all. And I was losing weight very quickly. I wasn't even sleeping in my bed because it was hard for me to even get up off the couch. I think I might have showered maybe once, but it was horrible, and everything was kind of a blur at that time. I was just kind of taking medication, and anyways. On that 11th day, I had a conversation with my mom in the morning, and I said, you know, I don't know what this virus is. I don't know what's going on. Maybe you should kind of, you know, we shouldn't see each other for now. But I knew that maybe it was, you know, something happened with my nerves. Maybe I was scared. I don't know. That 11th day, I was so weak. I was so miserable. My throat hurt. My head hurt. It was so bad. I remember going into the kitchen and just feeling like I need to have some water. And my husband was working long night. He was working 2 different jobs. So it was hard for him to also help me. Anyway, very lonely and hard time. That 11th day at night, I remember it was like in the afternoon. I remember getting up to grab a cup of water, and I tried to drink it, and the pain was so bad. It felt like needles in my throat. And I remember just putting the glass down, and I just went on my knees and I surrendered. And at that time I said, God, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's going on, but I need you, because I feel like I am deep in like hell at this point. Like, this is just awful. I feel like I feel this thing near me, and I just don't know what's going on. And so I fell to my knees and I began to cry, and I was sobbing, and I had this feeling of just like complete surrender. Like, Lord, please help me. I don't know what's going on. And as I closed my eyes, I felt like the presence of just this hand going in and grabbing me by my chest and lifting me up. And as he lifted me up, I started crying and feeling peace and joy for the first time in a very long time. At that moment, I just felt myself being hugged. You know, in my heart, it was kind of like a hug from Jesus, just saving me. And I remember just crying for a long time and feeling this peace and this joy and saying, Lord, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I would just keep saying the Lord's Prayer over and over and over again. And I was able to get up, and I grabbed that glass of water, and it went down for the first time. I was able to drink that water, and my throat did not hurt. And I felt like I was saved in that same instant. I feel as though I was saved. I don't want to make this video too long, so I might just film a part 2. because this is probably an introductory testimony of the many things that God has done and continues to do in my life. The purpose of this testimony is first and foremost to give God all glory, but also if there is somebody that is, right now experiencing something that does not feel right within this new age, within this spirituality realm, where you think, logically you feel like you're doing good, but on a soul level it feels like you're having a lot of dark nights of the soul, and you feel as though it's just never ending. Emotional healing, and you feel like you just have open wounds at all time, and everything feels temporary and it just does not end. If you're a person that's deep into spirituality but you find yourselves fighting addictions, you're drinking, you're smoking, you are going through all of these things, but deep down you know that you want to do good. I just want to do good, God. Then I hope and pray that this testimony reaches you, and that you know that you're not alone, and that you know that that gut feeling that you feel deep inside is God who's guiding you and who wants your heart.